Welcome to this video. Thanks so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. This video is going to be a little inflow message from the guides, potentially about our missions here as humans on our path, potentially about our missions here on Earth. And I've done a video before about our mission here on Earth, but it's been coming up a lot more. And I could go into so many different directions. And so maybe I'll start off in flow and then move into some of my own experiences and what I've been witnessing in session and so on and so forth. If I have found it to be a common theme, I like to share it because then it can help more than just one person. So thank you. And this is made with the highest intention of love, light, and unity consciousness. As we look into the field and as we look at what our potentials are, or as we look into the potentials in the field of what is held within this existence, within this place in reality, we start to draw our attention and awareness to where it is, where our place is in this place, where our placement is in this reality, what it is that we are placing in front of us in this reality and where we have been placed. And this all comes back to our home base residency. And so we will start with that. For many people are searching for a direction. They're looking for a place in which to call themselves into, a place in which to call themselves up, a place in which to find a home base or resonance that they are seeking to express, feel, witness, interact with, and make a difference in, so on and so forth. For at the core of most humans is the desire to help other humans. And while some might argue that that is not the case, we would venture to say that it is always the case. Even in the case of self-help, or let us say, when someone is wishing to help others for their own benefit, it is still the desire to help another human, even if that human is ourselves. And so we may call this self-serving, or we may call this service to self. And we want to play with this for a moment. For we are always looking for the reality in which we can be of the highest service to ourselves. Why else would we be here? There is a fine line between serving the ego and that version of the self and actually being in service to the higher self. So for this particular transmission, we will refer to the higher self. But it is important in this journey to recognize and witness compassionately when we are being self-serving or serving the ego self, or serving, being of service because we think that it will make us feel better or make us look better, or it will be necessary in order to enhance what it is that we want. So that particular group of examples we just used would be service to lower self, ego self, and versions of reality that we think we need in order to, I'm seeing a lot of things like come back into wholeness, come back into unity, make more money, make more of an influence, be seen as a leader of change, and so on and so forth. So from one perspective, if those things are being used to do good for mankind, yet they are self-serving, are they really negative? And so we would play with that and invite you to ask yourself the same question. However, that is not what we would like to address today. Right now, we would like to just address our home base and come back to service to the higher self. And we may find ourselves on a certain direction in which we have been looking for direction. And because we have maybe been interlocked in an idea or conceptualization of what it is that we are supposed to be serving, what it is that we are serving out, like a platter that we're offering, and what else it has been that we've been served. We're playing with this. And the reason we are playing with this is because from a higher perspective, all is serving the self. For we are all one, are we not? We are all part of the same organism, which is the energy or electricity that moves through all things. And we are each an individual reflection of that one breathing, living organism. And so, however it is that we choose to represent that version in this lifestyle or this life experience will look differently. And some came here to serve the lower self. Some people came here with the mission, the purposeful mission to be of service to the ego, to be of service to the lower realms, to be in a place of self-serving, self-preservation, so on and so forth. And inadvertently are helping the all, the bigger picture. Maybe they are doing it because they wish to be admired, or these individuals might feel as if they need to be a martyr. And that is actually a service to the ego from one perspective, ironically. It is not necessarily coming from a place of just wishing to be in the highest levels of love and compassion. So we share this because it is something to question. It is something to acknowledge or recognize, and not to be in a place of judgment around it, for it is what it is. Yet if this is who you are and you are seeking to move away from that, we invite you to go back into a place of recognition that all is one. And so no matter what direction we are going in, we are all serving the one. And so we are here to live life. We are here to live life at its fullest from one perspective. And if it makes us happy to serve, and we are receiving recognition because of it, and that is serving our ego, while we are simultaneously helping a group of beings who desperately need help from that perspective, then it is not necessarily all a negative thing. Even though the origination or the reason for doing this work is coming from a self-serving energy, it is actually having a positive ripple effect. And this is one area that is interesting to just consider. The other area is to consider, though, the bigger impact that we will have coming from a place of love. When we can truly allow ourselves to feel into the fact that all is coming from one originally, before it was systematically compartmentalized and distorted and broken down to an individual so far from source that it is difficult to see the oneness in all things, we are being invited to come back to that resource and to utilize that so that we can see above the lens or lens of perception of the ego. And we use ego is not necessarily a negative word. As the example we used earlier, even someone who is here to self-serve is actually helping others in the process, then it is not necessarily a negative all around. However, that self-serving person is holding a vibration. And when we do something that holds a vibration of true inner oneness, organization of love, compassion, and joy, it has a stronger impact than when we do something because we feel it is our job, our need. It is something that we feel we must do. And it is not coming from a place of, I'm basically seeing drive versus that feels really good. It's not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing, but it is a vibration. When we do something because we feel bad, that is not necessarily the highest vibration that we can get. And what I'm being shown as I'm saying this is where the path that the guides are going is kind of showing us that's not a bad thing, though, necessarily. On the flip side, if we could take it into a deeper level and a deeper layer and really find the joy in doing that work, that changes the frequency of the experience. And then it actually allows us to be serving our higher self, our higher frequency, and our higher vibration. So when we do something feeling, whether it's because we feel like we want to be rewarded, or we want people to think that we're working really hard, or we feel like people need to see us as a martyr, or we're doing something because I guess I'm going to go do this today because I really have to, because it's part of my job, so on and so forth. So when we use the word, as the guides are saying, mission, there's different levels or layers of what that looks like. And it's difficult for people in some circumstances to actually find joy in what it is that they are interacting with, even if that is helping someone else. So when we find that there's something we feel called to help with or to fix, as if it's wrong or it needs fixing, we're really being asked to stop and ask ourselves, why? What part of this will I find joy in? Because part of it is the experience. If we are on a mission and we don't actually accomplish what it is that we're set out to accomplishing, then that potential of not accomplishing it, that means it's a goal and we're losing the actual experience of working in that realm, we'll say. It could be anything. World hunger. Here we are, we're working to feed the hungry. We go and volunteer at a homeless shelter, and we feel even more discouraged because we see that there's not enough. We're being reflected back to us that I have to do more. We need more of this, we need more of that. And rather than finding joy in the experience, instead we look towards more. We look towards, or we feel helpless because there's never enough that we could do as one person in order to fix that problem and fix that crisis. So that isn't necessarily coming from ego, the example that I'm using. That's actually coming from a pure place of wanting to serve and to help people, but recognizing the end result may not be what it is that we're working towards. So what my guides are saying, to take a step back and to ask ourselves, how can we have this experience in the highest amount of joy to have the strongest ripple effect on everyone we come into contact with when we are working in whatever mission it is that we are working in. Even in this line of work, you guys, I've had to take breaks because I felt like it was my responsibility to help people. I felt like my mission was to help other people discover their gifts. That shifted the frequency, and it took me out of joy of the experience and into, all right, let's make this work. How can we fix this? I'm going to have an impact on this person. It's going to be positive. And while that's not wrong from one perspective, it isn't exactly the highest vibration of like feeling a place of having fun with it. Let's have fun and see where this goes, and not have an expectation of what it needs to look like or how it needs to happen. And that is very challenging, you guys, and no matter what line of work we're in. So I'm being shown that we're really being called, again, it's self-work. When we can be with ourselves and feel excited about whatever it is that we're doing in that moment, not only will we have answers about what it is that we're supposed to be doing that will come into our awareness, we will also have a stronger impact through that experience. When we're not in our hearts, for example, and we're working, we have an impact zone of, let's say, 3 feet around us. When we're in our hearts and we're feeling a place of bliss and we feel like we're doing things that are bringing joy to ourselves and to the individual or groups that we're working with, that heart circumference radiates out, as far as we know, 15 feet, according to the HeartMath Institute, versus 3 feet. That, I'm getting goosebumps, is where it starts. So I'm being called to just say, if you're not sure why you're here or what your mission is, you're not alone. There's a lot of people that are feeling that way. But by us saying, I have to do this to get this accomplished, that's in our heads, not our hearts. I feel called to do this because I feel like this needs to get done and I'm so sad about what I'm seeing in the world. Well, that's compassion. But again, start with the small things, and that will radiate out and we'll be guided to go where we're needed most. We're going to be guided to work with the people that will have the biggest impact on, rather than forcing it. So I hope that's helpful for someone who's been wondering about that. Okay, what I'm also hearing is sometimes our missions change. Sometimes they change as we change. We change focus, and therefore what we're focusing on, of course, shifts. So we might feel really inspired to be working with a particular group of people for a particular reason. And then all of a sudden, somewhere in that, we get lost, or we feel less inspired, or we feel stuck, and we don't feel like we're necessarily bringing to the table what we were bringing to the table. So these are 3 different variations of what can happen during that shift. But again, what the guides continually say is get back into the center, get back into the heart, get back into the space of feeling and allowing the synchronicities to flow in, that then can allow us to redirect our energies and our focus someplace else that maybe we're being called to look at that we weren't looking at before. So for example, let's say we're working with hungry children. This is going to sound terrible, but I'm really being called to use this as an example. And it was our passion. And for some reason now our lifestyle has changed, and we've been working in that field for a while, and we just feel like we've done all that we can do. And we're feeling called maybe to be more in touch with animals. Let's say all of a sudden we had this childhood desire to work with horses. There's a certain amount of guilt that might be associated with changing our focus from that, working with hungry children, to working with horses. It's not that it's a better or worse. It's that something has shifted in our reality, that our attention and energy may be better spent shifting in that direction for a little while, because we may have lost our joy in helping these hungry children, which sounds awful. Like, how could I lose joy? I'm helping children that need food. But it's not about that. Because if we're no longer feeling joyous about that, now we've got guilt involved. Now we've got a feeling of being forced to do something. We're forcing ourselves to do it. We know we're helping people, we're knowing we're having an impact, but we no longer feel good about it. It has to start with us. However, we might go and focus our attention on, let's say, horses for a while. That might bring us joy. It might raise our frequency. It might raise our vibration. And then we may end up finding out that we can actually connect people who work with horses to work with children who are potentially in need of, let's say, horses can be service animals. I'm utilizing this as an example because I'm trying to get us to think outside of the box. Sometimes we get very one focused and we think this is all that's important, so I need to work on this. When in actuality, we've lost ourselves along the way. Being a martyr is not necessarily the highest and greatest good for ourselves. And unless we're in a place where we're caring for our bodies, we're in a place of joy, we're able to feel gratitude and compassion, we're able to smile and find that inner child. If we're not doing all of those things, we're essentially depleting our battery. And we're not going to be able to be of the highest service to those hungry children, as an example, if we were doing something that really brought us joy. And that may not be forever. It might be that our body or our guides or our the universe is pulling us in this other direction, so we can stop, take a break, find the joy, regroup, use different senses, have different interactions, have different conversations, meet different people. And then that gives us the opportunity to open to another bubble that was closed off before. And then we can come back to our original service if we feel called to, with a brand new perspective, a feeling of openness and feeling healthy about it. It's not healthy to feel like we're in a constant state of sadness, or I'm just seeing people feeling heavy with weights on their shoulders. And I'm obviously using a huge topic here, but also recognizing that that may not be our mission. It might be that we can hand that off to someone else and help a little bit with it. And we might be better suited to potentially help those children with education. It might be that we're better suited to helping those children, again, find services with animals or to connect with animals. There might be something there that maybe is in addition to where we were going with that. It might be for us to work with children and gardens, to teach them how to work with the earth and to become self-sustainable. It might be working with the parents in order to teach the parents how to become self-sufficient. It might be working with investors. That might be where the joy is. It may not be working directly with these children. It might be that maybe you've never had children before, and it's not, there's no shame in saying I get along better with animals than I do with people. Or there's no shame in saying I don't really get along with animals and I only want to work with people. Every individual is different. But it might be that we are actually very good at working with people who might have the funds to support a cause that we feel inspired by, and our joy might actually come from organizing those people, having inspiring conversations, creating that money or that network, and then passing it over to the group of children who are hungry. It's not just one thing. And so I'm really being called to share that because this is something that's been coming up a lot in sessions, ongoing, pretty much since I've been doing this. And I think one of the messages, to go back to the beginning, is not being in judgment about why we're doing something, but at least being honest and recognizing why we're doing something and asking ourselves, is this really bringing me joy? Is this really bringing me up to my fullest potential? Because maybe my gifts aren't being utilized to their maximum potential, and that's why I don't feel satisfied, gratitude. I don't feel, it might be that we have compassion, but we feel bogged down by the service that we're providing. It might just be that we need to go to a different outlet of that service, if that's making sense. And I think sometimes that gives us the ability to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. So I just wanted to share that little message. I know a lot more is going to be coming up about this. So I hope that someone found this helpful. And thank you so much for everyone who's actually brought this to my awareness and continues to bring it to my awareness. I will say that there are, this is a separate topic, but one of the topics is we each have individual gifts. Some of us have a very specific mission that we came here for. And usually, if we're not sure what it is, it can be because we haven't necessarily sat down with ourselves and gone into a deep enough centered place to just recognize it. And that's where asking for help, going to meditation, starting a new hobby, having a intuitive session, asking the question to a therapist even. I mean, all of these things can help us find those answers. But I will say oftentimes, just like the video I did about asking questions, what are we asking? I find that oftentimes we already kind of know the answer. We just haven't recognized it. So, in love and light, guys, namaste.